Let it all out.
Okay.
Let it out. There.
No,
Relax.
me. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. We're the whiskey. Oh, see, I it up already. Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the. All right. Hi. We'll get past this, then we'll talk.
No, we got to keep it.
Come on.
Keep it in.
Hi, everyone.
Derek, this is us at lunch. Just-
Well, hold on. But I want to at least get the intro right. I did college radio. I want to make sure.
Oh, okay.
That, you know.
Fine,
good.
fine. You're
Fine.
the expert.
Can we be friends? Can we be friends? Can we be friends? Can we be friends?
Hey there. Welcome to the Can We Be Frank podcast, where the whiskey may be on ice, but the talk is always straight up.
That's right.
I'm one of the co-hosts, Derek Kedell. I'm here with Mike Axe and Robert Zappia. We'll get into a little bit about who we are a little later in the episode, but we just kind of want to dive right into it. One of us comes up with a topic that the others haven't been told about, and then we're going to comment on it. So I'm going to turn that over to Robert for the first one. Go ahead and let us know what we want to talk about.
Uh-oh.
Okay. Now this is a new phenomenon. It's a new kind of term that's been coined.
Okay.
Nepo-Baby. Right?
Ah, yes.
Okay.
Okay. Now this wasn't around when I was growing up, thankfully, because I am one.
Yes.
But I take issue with it. I want to discuss it with you guys and see
Okay.
what you think.
Okay,
Now
yeah.
here's my take on it.
All right.
So it's obviously a derogatory term when they're like, oh, you're just a Nepo baby. You have a father, a mother, a uncle, an aunt, whoever in the industry, in particular in this case. And that's the only reason why you got in.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in my case, my father was an editor, videotape editor, who did many shows in the 70s, 80s, 90s. And yes,
Won some Emmys.
won some Emmys, many nominations. And because I had that relationship, I got my first job as a production assistant at Disney.
Yep.
Okay, but after that, like once you're in, if I was a lousy production assistant or I didn't know what I was doing, they would not keep me hired because my dad was an editor. It gave me an opportunity.
Yep.
Now my point is, isn't that whether it's a relative like a dad or a mom, or and we can talk about how we met.
Sure.
Whether it's someone reaching out to you and building a relationship, a complete stranger, right? Basically, that led to you getting in the business. So that's it's networking.
Yeah, it's networking. Totally.
Derek, you knew Mike, right? And then he knew me, so you got in the industry. Like there's always some connection. You're always looking for an angle. How do I get in? It's very rare, at least to my knowledge, that someone just kind of lands here without any connections and finds a job. So I'm just curious.
Yeah.
You know how I feel about it, but I'm obviously biased because it's how I got my break. What do you think of it?
Well, I'll tell you, are you upset about the name? Does the name bother you?
No, the name
or the
doesn't bother me.
concept?
It's the concept. Like you can call me, like if it wasn't derogatory, oh, you're a Nepo baby. Oh, that's amazing. That's great. But it's not that. It's always like a derogatory. Like Smile, the actress that was in Smile.
Okay.
Right? It's Kevin Bacon's daughter.
Right.
Okay, so what? Like, yes, more than likely, if she was not Kevin Bacon's daughter, she would not have been more than likely given the opportunity and be in a place where she could have gotten the role. But she still did a phenomenal job. And people who didn't know she was Kevin Bacon's daughter still liked the film and liked her. Are there other actresses that don't have the connections in the relationship that would have been as good or better? Absolutely. But that, to me, to put a negative light on you getting into a position because you have a relationship with somebody, I think it's an unfair way to position it. It's like, again, so my daughter, who's in film school right now, kind of hid the ball on me being in the industry. Now, she's third generation Nepo baby. I don't know, it's like Nepo baby, squared or whatever it is. But because there's some shame to it almost, like, oh, well, your dad's a writer, or oh, your grandfather's in the business, or you've got it, you're a shoe-in, or you have a leg up, which is not untrue, but I don't know that's a negative thing, because I think you're always looking for a leg up. Like, so her friend might be a very talented actress or costumer that I would not have known otherwise. Now I see, and I give her an opportunity, or try and get her in front of somebody.
Sure, I agree. And I think some of the problem might just be that the term is only used in the Hollywood space, because outside of this industry, there are people that get their children jobs where they work.
Sure.
Usually,
Oh, that's true.
and it's usually very similar. It's like a summer internship and other things, and they don't call it nepotism as much, or Nepo-Baby. They don't have a term for it.
Yeah.
It's just, oh, you needed an internship. We have an opportunity here at work.
Sure.
You can do that. Now, some industries, though, and I think it doesn't work as well for, because parents always want more for their kids than they were. Where this is an industry where it's a prestige to be in it, and it's probably, if they can make it, they can make a good living. They're not toiling in a factory all day.
Right.
Whereas, like with my dad, there's no way he wanted to get me a job in the factory he worked at.
Right.
He wanted more for me. He wanted me to go to college. He wanted me to get an office job where you didn't have to sweat on the floor. You had air conditioning. But on that same token, I think he would have gladly gotten me a summer job there if I wanted it, in order to pay bills during college and do
Get
things
some
like that.
experience.
So, but wouldn't be a term for that. It wouldn't be negative. It would just be, oh, I'm glad your dad could get that. So I think it happens everywhere. It's just really a negative connotation with this industry, maybe because of some of the people, they shouldn't have maybe entered the industry and whatnot. I don't know. We're here to be frank, and I don't want to, well, is there anybody you guys
Name
can
names.
name? I don't
name.
know.
I don't know.
I
I
don't
can't.
know that I could name
I'd
any.
have to think about it.
Yeah, I'd have to think about it.
we could be here forever thinking about
But
it.
you have a good point in the sense that there's the difference between, like, it's positive when you're talking about a family business. Right?
Sure.
Like a restaurant, a bakery, or whatever it is. Oh, it's our family business. Like my grandfather was a shoemaker. And he learned that trade from his father, right? So it was kind of passed. Oh, you're in the family business. They don't call
Exactly.
my grandfather Nepo-Baby because he
No,
fixed
and
shoes.
it's a lot of people. It's expected, and both internally and outside the family, it's expected you're going to go into that business.
Sure.
So it is curious to me that in this industry,
It's negative.
it's a negative thing, and people don't expect, or they do expect it, but then they cast such a negative light on it.
And I think one of the reasons probably we're having trouble thinking of an example, because I do think, yes, they may be given opportunities, but typically the audience speaks, right? So you may give someone who's related an opportunity if they're in front of the camera, and if the audience doesn't respond to that, they're not going to just continually give them work because it's a bottom dollar, it's a business.
Sure.
And then behind the scenes, if you have someone that's incompetent and is kind of causing issues, then more than likely they might shuffle them around, but I don't think they're going to continue to rise. And I could be wrong. I'd have to think about it, but
Yeah, I'm trying to think like an example. I don't know. Maybe because it is a creative medium, rather.
right.
That it's so hard to tell that person, if you're an outsider, you're like, well, I can't even speak to them. Their dad is so and so.
Here's an example.
Okay.
Somewhat. Okay, you have the Michael Douglas, Kirk Douglas,
Okay.
right?
Yep,
Now
yep.
they're uber talented.
Sure.
But then you have the Baldwins,
Yep.
right? Like almost every Baldwin is an
I need a
actor.
flow chart to keep track
Exactly.
of all of them.
Yeah.
Yes.
But really,
okay.
the one you remember is the one who you could argue has the most talent, Alec.
Yeah.
Sure.
Sure.
It's a little bit of hot water. But that aside, right, he's kind of the one that made it to the forefront of the brothers.
Yep.
Right.
So while they all got opportunities maybe because of Alec,
Sure.
You
the
mean
others,
like those reality shows that the other ones were on? Never
yeah,
mind.
actually I watched those. Those weren't too
Oh,
bad.
okay. Yeah, some of they do all right on
Yeah.
the reality shows.
But I'm trying to think of who else. But mostly acting is where you really think about it because that's what we're
Well,
most prone to. But-
cinematography isn't Sophia Coppola. Am I getting that
oh
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
Well, director, yeah.
Director.
Her father's Francis Ford.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, I'm sure she worked very hard for the position, but she had opportunities someone who wasn't related to Francis Ford Coppola
Right.
would not have. But she's extremely competent. People see her movies and they do very well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But that just brings so basically what you're saying is you don't like the term. It's just networking,
Exactly.
Yeah.
which
I
we
agree
all
with that.
have to do to get into this.
Right.
It seems to be to get
Like
into
if
this
you're
industry.
against Nepo-Babies, then you should be against networking. Like that.
Right.
If
It's
your
completely
stance
one and the
is,
same, right?
if your stance is I'm on Survivor and I need to do this on my own. I need to knock on doors of complete, studio exec strangers until I get a job. Okay, then I'll say, well, I don't agree, but at least I'll respect you across the board. Feel like everybody who uses some connection, which is insane, to get a job is wrong. But to single out because your connection happens to be a relative
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it could be a long distant relative, you know. And my father ended up getting, my dad is one of 12 kids.
Wow.
He ended up getting 2 of his brothers' jobs in the industry. One was an editor who was editing like Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy, and you know, did mostly game shows. And then the other uncle was an engineer who would do like post house engineering and setting up edit bays. This is when post houses, you know, you couldn't edit in your living room. This is when you needed a big room to do it in. But
Right.
yeah, so I mean, and they, again, he got them the opportunity, and they both excelled.
Prove themselves. Yeah.
Prove themselves. Now, if they were terrible engineers and editors, they would not have lasted. Like,
Yep.
it wouldn't be just because, well, Marco recommended them.
Sure.
Right, and because if they don't look, and you have to really be careful though when you recommend family, because if they don't do well,
It's awkward.
Yes.
unless
It's
you're
awkward.
such a mega star,
That's a great
like the
point.
Baldwins might be, you know, that's a little different. But for the average Nepo baby like yourself, if you wouldn't have done well, that would have really reflected poorly on Marco.
It would have. And particularly in the sense we were on the same show. So the first job I was a PA on was a show called Carol and Company. It was a Carol Burnett show, and my dad was the editor. So it would be very awkward for him, you know, if I was just a lousy, lazy PA, you know,
Right.
who just like delivered scripts to the wrong actors and, you know, didn't get the food right.
And you were just lazy because of your
at my dad,
whatever.
yeah,
you
just,
know.
you know.
Not to take away from the topic, but you say deliver scripts, so, and I don't want to date you or age you,
My gray hair.
but the gray hair made you
That's
that.
okay.
But you talk delivering script, because now we just email that stuff out. When you first started, that is a lot of what a PA did. It's not just
It
coffee.
was-
You were delivering
Oh,
scripts.
no,
and
it was
Yeah,
a
what was
majority
it?
of the work was because it was literally there was no internet. I know
Right.
this is hard to fathom. It was like 1989. So that series was 89 and 90 before Home Improvement, maybe 91. I'm trying to remember. But no internet. I mean, the fact that we were doing scripts on computer was kind of revolutionary. And we were using WordStar. Yeah.
Never even heard of
it. Yeah. WordStar, an old program. And I was on a Home Improvement that we started with Final Draft 1.0. And it was
wow.
like in beta, but
Oh,
that's a
wow.
whole
What are we
other.
up to-
That's
what
a-
are we up to now?
It just 13 was just
13
released.
Okay.
That's a whole other story. But yeah, we would get a call from the writers that they were finished with the script. The PA would come in if you were on the night shift. Then these huge Kodak copiers, and you'd make 150 copies of the script.
Wow.
You'd collate it, and then you'd make cover pages, which is on different, like on card stock. You'd brad them with the brads, you know, that you put in scripts. And then you would have to deliver to, now Carol and Company was unique because the first season, the only person who was the same cast member on every episode was Carol Burnett. And there was a whole different cast. It's like doing a pilot every week. So you had a whole slew of guest stars. So you would then take, say, 10 or 12 scripts and have to deliver to Howie Mandel, you know, Christopher Reeves, Bernadette Peters, whoever that star was. And there was like guest stars. Now also, it's like 2 a.m. You don't have Google Maps. You don't have Apple Maps. You don't have Siri. You have the Thomas Brothers Guide, which is like this big book of maps, like with a grid. And you're looking up and traveling. And I was terrible at it. I got lost so much. Hidden Hills was my worst story. Howie Mandel lived in Hidden Hills, which now there's like a sign, an off-ramp off the 134 that says Hidden Hills. There was not when I was a PA. And I drove all the way to, I think it was like Camarillo. And I just could not find it. And I pulled over at a gas station and I asked, do you know where Hidden Hills is? And they're like, well, we've never heard of it.
Oh, gee,
really
well, it
was
must have been
hidden.
really
it was,
hidden then.
it was. I eventually found it. Anyways, but yes, it was a very different time.
That's-
And then you also had to take all the scripts to the studio executives, the network executives' houses,
Oh,
the
man.
director's house, the AD's house.
Jeez.
So it was a 2-3 hour, just the deliveries, but it would take you an hour and a half to do the copying.
Wow.
Right.
So do you think that that hurt now that we have all that? Are there just less production assistants on a
No, you know, there aren't. But,
Okay.
But this is where I feel like the old man because they still complain like
Right.
we did, right? And like, well, in my day, you know, I mean, I
Right.
feel like one of those people. Like you have Google Maps, you get to email half your stuff.
Right.
Yeah. We didn't have Starbucks. We had like, I had never even heard of a cappuccino. I didn't know what that was, an espresso, but we had like the old machine and the steaming. I had to be a barista, a copier. You were getting dogs from the groomers. You were shipping clothing. You were getting dark. It was very different.
Wow.
But anyways,
Yeah, that's-
off.
Right.
sidebar.
Off topic, but
Yes.
great topic.
Yeah,
great.
interesting.
But so that really leads us into what our main topic for this episode is, which is networking.
Yep.
And
I'm against it. That's my whole point. We should not.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. Do it on your
well,
own.
see, but if we didn't do it, none of us would be here.
Well,
and
we'd be. Well, we wouldn't be here.
we wouldn't be here. We certainly
We
would
would
not
be
be.
alive.
We
We'd be
certainly
alive.
wouldn't be in a podcast studio in Hollywood.
I'd be stuck in Bowman Hat Company in Adamstown, Pennsylvania.
That's right.
Yeah, and
Where would you be?
I'd be probably an accountant in
Williamsport.
in Williamsport,
In the middle of
Pennsylvania,
nowhere.
somewhere in Pennsylvania. Which I don't want to knock that. I love accounting. I'm a nerd in that sense, but it's not nearly as exciting as what I've gotten to do the past 10 years.
Sure.
But we found out how Robert got here. It was
I'm a Nepo-Baby.
He was a Nepo-Baby.
Yep.
Yes.
His
We've
dad
established that.
was a award-winning editor, and he has a book out.
Smartest guy in the room.
Smartest guy in the room. Can you still buy that?
You can on
We can
Amazon.
we can plug
There we
that.
go.
That's on
Let's
Amazon.
go.
That's our first sponsor. That's not a sponsor.
Yeah, no, he's dead.
But check it out.
Unfortunately, he
Well,
can't.
he's looking down.
Yes.
Yes, but it was a great book. I really enjoyed reading it. So enough of that plug.
Oh, but I'm sorry.
Okay. No, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Mike.
No.
But
Please.
when we talk about people who just break in with zero contacts, like not a soul, that was my dad. So he
Oh,
was
that's
the
right.
first
Okay.
to get in
Oh, yeah, this is great.
with nothing. So he quick story. And
yeah,
we'll get to
no,
it.
this is
But-
great. No, I love
But this
story.
is like, yeah, he did it. I don't know how he did it. I mean, I do know how, but I'm not sure how it all worked out. But so he always called himself jack of all trades, master of none. He was in his 20s. He was just going from job to job. He worked for RCA pulling cable, like at the Biltmore Hotel in LA when they put in cable for the first time. He was so skinny. He was the only one who could fit in between the floors. He'd say, like, if my head could fit into a space, my whole body could. So he would run cables in between the floors, and he would then have to follow the cable to get back out.
Ay, ay, ay.
So, I mean, he had his own TV repair shop. He ran out of the garage, and he would, like, take parts out of the toaster and stuff to fix.
And
you could do
did he
that
learn
back
that
then, yes.
himself? Like,
yeah,
did he
all
learn how
self-taught.
to do that? That's
Didn't
amazing.
go to college, all self-taught.
Wow.
And my mom would have cake batter for dinner because it was cheap and she liked to taste. But anyway, so she saw an ad in the LA Times for an engineer at CBS. And it was like an open call type ad. So she said to my dad, "You got to go to this." He's like, "What are you I don't know anything about engineering." She goes, "Go to the library, read up on it, and go." And you know my dad, he was very passive, but he really fought her on it. But she just wouldn't take no for an answer. Goes to the library, gets a book on engineering, goes to CBS, takes the test. They call him in and they say, "You score the highest on this test than anyone who applied."
Amazing.
Wow.
Yeah. So he gets the job as an engineer at CBS. Within a year, he's in the tape operating room. And this is when there was 2-inch tape, and it was all.
yeah.
He started using, and it's in the book, but all the kind of little MacGyver hacks he would do on the machines to make them do certain things. One editor was that he was like the operator for, the engineer for, was out sick suddenly, and he kind of sat in. They put him in the editor's chair, and he knew enough to do it. After that one day working with my dad, the producers said, "We don't want anyone else but
Oh,
Marco."
that poor guy.
His first year editing, he won an Emmy.
That's wow.
Oh, for which?
It was Hee Haw.
The Hee
Yeah.
Haw one.
Yeah.
Okay.
The first. So that's when
That's
know.
incredible.
So that's someone who's like goes from total obscurity, doesn't know anything about the business, to
And then he became
winning an Emmy.
so well liked.
Oh my gosh, top of his all the Norman Lear shows, All in the Family, Maude, Jeffersons.
That Michael Jacobs story that you
Michael's-
talk about, where
Which one?
yeah, the one where he really fought for your dad.
Oh, Michael Jacobs loved my dad. So my dad did My Two Dads, Who's the Boss,
Did he do
Boy Meets World,
Yeah.
every episode of Boy Meets World. And Michael Jacobs loved my dad and my mom. Because eventually my mom went to work for my dad. Now that was she was a Nepo wife. That's what she
Nepo
was.
wife.
She got a job, but that's a whole other story. But yeah, Jacobs, Disney, my dad made a lot of money for an editor. And there was a point where he was also getting AD pay so he can edit, because he was doing like 3 or 4 shows at a time.
And they did that, not to interrupt you, because it was an interesting story I heard from you before, because otherwise he couldn't cut without a director
Correct.
in the
Yeah,
room,
you have to have
unless he was considered an AD,
Right.
correct?
You had to have at least an AD in the room to edit
So by making him an AD means he could just go to town whenever he wanted to do
at
it.
any time of day or night.
Is that still true today?
I don't know. I believe it might be.
Okay.
So he was getting AD pay for every episode, editor pay for every episode. And he bought 3 Avid systems, which in that day you can do it on your computer. They were like 150 grand each.
Wow.
And rented those back to Disney.
Wow.
They were doing very well. And Disney wasn't thrilled with them. And so there was a show where they said, we're going to use a different editor. And Michael Jacobs called a meeting with the head of Disney, the head of post at Disney, my mom, my dad. And he just walked into the meeting. He waited till everyone was there. He walked in and he said, Marco's editing my show, or I'm not doing the show.
Wow.
That's the only thing he said. He kissed my mom on the cheek and he walked out.
Wow. That's incredible.
And they said, okay, then. he was so, and he has a reputation. I've never worked with him. And he was so sweet to my parents. But he has a reputation of being that kind of difficult person to work with. But when my dad passed, my daughter was younger, and they did Girl Meets World.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted to go see taping, and we went to see taping, and we were in the audience, and he came up into the audience and pulled me aside and just said the sweetest things about my dad.
That's so nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get
that's
emotional,
awesome.
but yeah,
Yeah.
That's
Very
really
nice.
great. That's great.
Well, no,
But
like
anyway,
I
so that's saying that's someone who did it without.
So you can
Without-
do it both ways.
Yeah,
So
sure.
yes, I rode the coattails a bit, but,
Yeah, but
but he
made it for himself.
Made it for himself.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because, like you say, like your dad would not want you to be on the floor, right? If you're going to go in the factory, he'd want you in the air conditioned
yeah,
office.
or something,
My
yeah.
dad was the same way.
Yeah.
So I said, teach me how to edit because I knew, just going off the name, I'll get work. And he's like, absolutely not. You need to be above the line.
Okay.
I don't want you to be below the line. And I
Wow.
really kept pushing him, and he said, if you're not writing in 3 years, I'll teach you how to edit.
Okay.
And I was, so
Well,
he never taught me.
And then and no looking back from
No.
Yeah.
Okay, Mike, go on. That
Okay,
was,
yeah.
I just thought
So what?
Well, that's great. So, but that's how Robert got here. Now let's explain about how you and I got here.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I don't remember how I found Robert's email address. I don't remember. And
have
you
no
said
idea
it was
how
like
you
an
did it.
obscure.
It
Well,
was,
now-
I'll tell you exactly what it was.
Well, let's date this though, so people
Oh,
realize
yes.
how it was a little harder to find email.
True.
addresses
Yes.
back
This
then.
was. I was 13, so it was 1998
when
ish.
Halloween H2O came
When
out.
Halloween H2O, Robert wrote Halloween H2O. I was a big horror fan, and
I was on, it was American Online.
yep,
And my
AOL.
screen name, because when I was in 8th grade, I created a production company.
Okay.
I mean, created in my head, but it was called Tailored Image
Yep.
Productions. And so my screen name was, you couldn't fit all Tailored Image. It was
Yep.
TLRD
I remember that,
Image
yep.
at AOL.com.
Yep.
Nothing, Robert, no Zappia.
Nothing.
But
Yeah.
you found it.
I have
somehow.
no idea how I found
But
it. I don't
anyways, you
remember
did.
that. But yeah, so I back in that time I ran a Halloween club on AOL, and I would literally go through the keywords and scour for Halloween, Michael Myers, and I would ping these people, instant message at the time, and say, "Hey, do you want to join my club?" And got so many subscribers. I remember that AOL like blocked me from signing back in, and my grandmother had to call because I was too young, call AOL and be like, "Hey, you know, it's this fine. Like he didn't do anything," and they're like, "Well, like." 800 emails just went out. You know, there's no MailChimp. There was no distribution lists at that time, but I guess their server or whatever at the time got overloaded. So, yeah, we had to do that twice. And then I ended up having to give up the club, which was very sad. But yeah, like I think that's how or why I wanted to connect with you. I mean, obviously being the big horror fan and respecting the craft of writing and everything. But I know you had sent some great autographs. And I remember that you drew a pumpkin, and you were like, what is it? Gosh, I forget what you said. Blood is thicker than water, or something like that. And I can't draw, or something that you had.
I can't draw.
Yeah.
No, that's true. But that's after you reached out.
That was after I
so
reached
you
out. Yeah.
out.
Yep. Yeah. So
What was that initial email?
Gosh, I was just, hey, I'm a fan of the Halloween movies, and I think I know I told you about the club because I know I can
You
look.
wanted-
I wanted an interview,
and you told me your age.
and my age, yep,
Yeah.
and all of that. And I remember you saying like, "What's a 13-year-old doing watching
I-
that movie?" You were
exactly,
like,
yeah.
"Yeah." This is
And I
scary.
remember too, because you would say you're number one fan,
Yes, number one fan always.
and my point was the only fan. Like,
That's right.
not only fans, but
Oh, God,
the
yes.
only fan. But the even now, writers, unless you're a very big name writer, aren't particularly in the forefront of people's minds. So it was very rare, particularly then, to get an email from somebody wanting to interview the writer of anything, or let alone on AOL. So yeah, it was.
Yeah. It was, yeah, it was, yeah, like I said, I don't remember how I found it, but we then stayed in touch. You had sent me that picture of you and Jamie Lee and signed that, and you sent me some scripts, which was awesome. And
Well, it was easy to do too because there was only you were the only one. No, I mean it wasn't like I had tens of people asking
Like
for
you do
autographs
now?
and tens of people.
tense.
Well, but the picture though, that's an interesting story, or an interesting point of the story, because I'm sure it served as a way for you to legitimize this connection. Because I can't imagine your grandma believed back then
Right.
that you were really talking to a. You gotta be careful who you were talking to on the internet. In
Oh, yeah.
1998.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
my wife,
Yeah.
when I told her, she's like, "Well, what's his name?" I said, "It's Mike Axe." She's like, "Axe?" I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "Who has the last name Axe?" She goes, "I don't think this is a 13-year-old you're talking to."
Yeah.
He's like probably some serial killer. Like, don't put your return address. So it had me so freaked out. I had my agent. I sent the stuff to my agent, and then they sent it from the agency because
Yep.
I thought, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But your grandmother was.
My grandmother was the same way. I mean, she's like, "Oh, who's this man on the internet?" And he's probably
He's going to lure you into his.
yeah, because she didn't
Writer's
understand. She
den.
didn't understand. She still doesn't really understand technology, of course. But yeah, she's like, yeah, he's a pedophile in a van. You don't talk to him.
Well, it is Hollywood. You can't be too.
You never know.
Yeah.
But yeah, we stayed in touch for obviously all this time,
And you would send me.
oh God,
I wish.
Nick Rose and I. God,
I wish, Derek, I had.
They
these.
would blackmail.
He would send me these films. they'd
horrible,
make,
horrible
like
films.
spoofs, not but like takes on Halloween.
Yeah, yeah, we
with
had
his
fun
friend
with
Nick
it. Mhm.
on VHS, and they were. I mean, you were 14, 15.
Yeah, yeah, we were just
But if
having
I
fun.
had him now, I would love to run a
Well,
clip.
you're worth a lot of money now.
Well,
That'd be
yes,
How
amazing.
famous we are. No, but
Well, I'd pay to
did
keep 'em
that,
quiet.
was
Yeah,
that, what as a creative, I'm sure you had to respect that from such a young person. Whether you liked them or
absolutely.
not.
No,
but-
that's not the point because you're right. And when did you start the autograph business?
I mean, I was probably starting the autograph business back then because I remember the first autograph I got was from Dan Lauria from the Wonder Years. I was a huge Wonder Years fan, and I remember I found his address in the white
You better not have
pages.
said #1 fan to him.
No, I did not.
Okay. Just want to make sure. That,
Although he's fantastic, but yes. So I remember finding a Dan Lauria in Los Angeles and his address, and I remember I wrote 2 letters. One letter was like to the Dan Lauria who may not be the actor Dan Lauria, and was like, "Oh, really sorry if I'm bothering you, but if you are the actor, read my next letter," which was the fan letter. And I didn't expect anything from it, but a couple weeks later, I came home and there was a Manila envelope in between the door, and it was to me, and I was like, "What's this?" And I opened it up, and it was a couple signed photos from him. Thanks for watching the Wonder Years. And I was like, "Wow, this is really cool." And so I started to look up other people and started to write to them, and really kind of keeping the autograph thing going for a while because it was just something that I was very interested in. And I would trade up and find different stars and things like that I would want in my collection. But so I think I actually started collecting autographs before the Halloween.
see, that's
thing.
what's
So it was
amazing
like
to me. So yeah,
12, 10,
and
maybe?
you, even when you came out to LA, still had that business and it had grown quite large. I mean, you were
Yeah.
making good money
Yeah,
doing that.
yeah, yeah.
So that's impressive to start at 13 and do that.
Yeah, yeah, and autographed people have the negative connotation. I was always of the mind that, hey, I'm trying to help support people who don't have the opportunity or don't have the wherewithal to get these signatures, especially for the people that you needed like trade up for and stuff.
Right.
So
with cameras and stuff like that, everybody takes a selfie now. No one
That's true.
autograph is sort of a lost
Art.
form of collection, perhaps because they'd rather get a selfie.
sure,
But when it's in its peak, autograph correcting to have that signature was important, and it's just so
so
hard
cool.
to get them. So if you had the opportunity to get it,
was connecting a fan with
yeah,
with something that they loved, and that was
Exactly.
what made me happy.
yeah, exactly. And but the problem is to do that, there's a cost associated with that, your time and just effort. So
But I know
selling
it's
it,
looked at negatively, and that's
and yeah,
but
you shouldn't look at that negatively. You're not.
necessarily.
Yeah, I think it's just like anything else. It's the people at Cameo are making money off of all those.
Sure,
right.
Sure.
And that's not looked at as negatively. It's the same thing.
Sure,
You're just you're helping people connect it, and then there are bad eggs out there, just like with
Yeah.
any other industry.
definitely a lot of bad. eggs, but-
and people that fake them and things like
Yeah,
that. There's
that's a whole
plenty of
other-
bad stuff out there. But, you know, for us, it was important to us that we were just connecting people to the fans.
Yeah, that was
You
what.
know,
So,
yeah,
and that's a form of networking in a sense. So you
Sure.
had reached out to me, you had reached out to these other stars.
Yep.
I know Pamela Shoop from
Yeah, Pamela
Halloween,
Susan
you
Shoop.
had gone to dinner with. And
she's
and had met.
fantastic. Yeah,
So
we're still in touch. Yeah.
and so over the years, as you got older, you went through college, you came out
Mm-hmm.
a couple times, and you had talked about interest in moving out.
Oh yeah. I knew I wanted to move to
And
California.
you're like, if there's ever an opportunity, if there's ever a job. Now, I've never had the opportunity to hire anyone as a writer, like unless you, again, are a certain tier of writer, that you need an assistant, a full-time assistant or something, and that just never was the case up until when I went to work for Age of Learning, ABC Mouse.
Yep.
They said, okay, you can hire an assistant. And it happened just about the timing you were really serious about moving out. And
Yeah.
so that's what led to you
Yeah,
making a big move, right?
Yeah, I knew I wanted to move, but I didn't want to be stupid about it and live out of my car or anything like that. I had a job in Pennsylvania and everything, but when the opportunity came up and you were like, "Hey, I think I can hire an assistant," I had flown out. It was middle of April, I remember, and did the interview with you and Ashley at Renegade, and got the job offer on the spot. And yeah, I mean, I signed a lease and moved out really. Like a month later, we was on the road. I remember having to give notice at Bowman because I was there, and gave notice there for 2 weeks, and it was Memorial Day weekend of 2013.
That's
that
insane.
Moved
It's been
across
over
the
10
country.
years.
Yeah, almost
Yeah.
11.
But
Crazy.
but you seeded that opportunity at 13
Yep.
when you emailed me. That's what's
And
so,
we maintained the friendship too,
We
which
did.
is so important, you know,
No,
because I think that's
absolutely.
the other thing that a lot of people do. They'll reach out once and then it
no, I
it
agree.
fizzles
and
away.
I certainly wouldn't have if we didn't hadn't developed a friendship because like an assistant, there's a million ways you can go. Right,
Sure.
there's a million people who can fill that.
Sure.
So whether you're a Nepo baby, like if Mike wasn't in the picture as a friend, and I had a cousin or something that was looking
Sure.
for an assistant
Sure.
job, then they may have gotten it because you have
Sure.
to. What makes someone stand out from a field of a lot of talented people? There has to be something that kind of raises them from the crowd, and it could just be the fact that you know them or there's a previous relationship.
Right, and you
Sure.
you can tell a lot from a resume, but you can't tell how well you're going to get along with that person.
Yeah, that's very true.
That's
And-
very true. Yeah.
And that's an important part. It's how that person's going to, if you bring someone in, they're going to reflect upon you. So it helps if you know that person to know they're going to reflect positively rather than someone on a piece of paper that could be, pardon my French, an asshole.
Sure.
You know,
Yeah.
you don't know. They checked all the boxes, but they're horrible to work with.
Horrible
Whereas
to
if you
deal
bring
with,
in a
yeah.
friend, you can teach them the craft.
And know the work ethic, right? So
Sure.
I knew
Work
that
ethic.
you had an autograph business at 13.
Yeah.
I knew that the work ethic was there.
Sure.
Right? This is not someone who's going to phone it in.
No.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Never.
So that's the benefit of that, and why I think it generally works out well for people that you bring in,
Yeah.
your connections, your networking.
Yeah.
And then a networking one level out. I knew Mike,
Yep.
who we've been friends since high school. We went to high school together. After we went to college together for a little bit, you
Yep.
transferred out. We've been friends for forever. I was an accountant. I liked accounting. Again, I'm a nerd, but it was to the point where I was like, I can do more. In college, I did college radio. I did the college TV station. I like the creative aspect, but you pick a major that's going to get you the most opportunities. So I went with the business major, which was accounting. And then so after, when you graduate, I was like, well, now I got to be an accountant. So I did that. But then when the opportunity came to take a leap before my 30th birthday, I was like, hey, Mike, I'll come with you.
Yep.
We can
Thank
try
God.
this. We can do all this,
'Cause I couldn't
together
afford it
because
myself.
it's very expensive
That's
out
true.
there and
It's so
whatnot.
expensive.
And then within, I would say 2-3 months, I too was working with you guys
Yeah.
in a slightly different capacity, but
Sure.
you got me a job. But again, it was that,
Was that in?
introduction to Ashley, the owner of Renegade Animation. It was like, listen, you can trust this guy. He can do the job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
You can see, accounting. I don't know how you really relate that to animation, but I'm telling you, his work ethic is good. He's a good guy.
Well,
He'll
it
make
was
work.
so interesting when Ashley was saying the job, because it was like auditing, but visual auditing almost.
Sure.
You know, like you were an accountant, so you were auditing all of these places and looking at numbers. The position that Ashley was opening up, because Age of Learning, because it's a learning company, was very, very particular about the things that they wanted. And they needed somebody to watch for continuity and making sure that all the characters looked right. And
Five
I knew
fingers.
that the attention to detail was there. And so, yeah, I was like, hey, try this guy. Let's see what you think. And I mean, you've worked pretty much ongoing. I know there was a few layoffs, but you've worked with Renegade since pretty much since we got here.
yeah.
and
Years.
it wasn't one and done.
Yeah.
I again took as you guys mentioned earlier, you have to take the reins. So I took that in,
Yep.
and I cultivated that relationship with Ashley and Renegade,
Yep.
and turned it into now 10 great years, with that company.
Yeah.
And going the whole way from being the quality assurance guy to
Producing.
coordinator to being a producer on our latest show that we did with Nickelodeon, Bossy Bear.
Yeah.
Which, if you have kids in the preschool age, please tune in.
Definitely
and
watch it. It's so cute. It really
That's
is.
a free plug for Nickelodeon. Just saying, guys, keep that in mind. That we're plugging that for you. But it was a great experience, and I took that and run with it, and I'm couldn't be happier. Mike, can you talk a little bit about what you do day to day with your connections?
Yeah.
To help maintain relationships and why that's so important.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that's the most important thing about networking is I don't look at networking opportunities almost as this sleazy, like, oh, I'm just reaching out for me. I genuinely, the people that I reach out to, I want to reach out to. I'm not going to keep people around just to keep them around. So I block out time every Sunday to make sure I'm texting people just to say hi and check in and make sure that they're doing well. And always trying to set up, dinners or coffee meetups or things like that we can just to stay in touch and keep those connections going. It isn't something that I'm doing. It isn't like I'm not meeting the same person every week necessarily, but you're keeping up with those connections. I think that, like I said, that is definitely something that's important. And I think where people fall off is they'll reach out once, they'll get a response and they'll be happy, but then the relationship will like dwindle away because you're not active in keeping those relationships open.
And then they don't reach out again until they need something.
Sure. And then it feels
disingenuous.
Yeah, it really does. So I try, when I'm reaching out to people, I'm always like, what can I do to help you? What are you doing? Let me try to help you. What advice do you need? Or how can I lend anything to you? Even as little as just sitting down and listening to you vent about something or what have you. It might not be like a work thing, but just trying to be a good person and a good, paying back, I guess you could call it in a sense of like, here are good people that I want to make sure that I maintain a relationship with, and everybody that I keep in my circle are close people. I would say, they're people that I want to follow up with. They're people that I want to say, how are you doing? What can I do to help you? I want to work with you in some way. Again, whether that's actual work or whether that's more of a working through something that you're going through or just listening to you or whatever it might be. Yeah. So I believe that networking is important. I believe that continuing that, cultivating that friendship, which I think it should be a friendship. I really, truly do. I think anybody that I talk to, I would consider a friend. They're not just colleagues or everybody that I work with. I feel like they're friends. I work now and I have a great team that I work with, and I feel like we're a small family, and so yeah, I think it's just important to maintain those relationships. That's why I stress to people, maintain the relationship. Don't reach out once and be done.
Smart.
Yeah, great advice.
I subscribe to that.
Okay.
I don't do that.
Okay.
But that's the writer in me. I tend to be very insular. But I think that's a great practice.
Yeah, it's I would consider
that to me is like a producer. That's like the producer in you.
Yeah, I think it is.
I think writers tend to be a little more insular.
I'm definitely. I wouldn't call myself an extrovert by any means, but I especially recently, I feel like I've come out of my shell. I've grown a lot over the last few years, and feel that my voice is important to be heard, and that people can take a value in what I have to say and what I have to offer, because so many people have complimented me along the way and said, you've really helped me, or you've really done a good thing. And I'm like, well, that's awesome. I'm so glad that I could make that difference. And I want to make a difference in other places. And I think for so long, I thought, well, that's a cocky attitude to have. But if I'm hearing this from so many people and I have the ability to offer that to other people, why not? So
I don't think it's
exactly what I've been
cocky
trying
at
to
all.
do. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And I have to agree with Mike. I'm not as good at it as Mike is. I'm more subscribe more to the Robert mentality, but I try, to keep in touch with people. I do consider people I worked with to be friends, and I'm going to take a little bit of the advice from Mike and try and be a little bit more proactive in that.
Reach out.
Because it doesn't hurt, even if it's just to get coffee. And catch up with them. You never
Have
know.
a good time.
Everything in this industry comes full circle, it seems.
100%.
So it's good to check in with people.
100%. 100%.
Awesome. Well, that was a great topic. So recently, Mike and I had the opportunity to go back to our high school in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
I went too.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Robert was there too. That's
Sure.
right. Robert got to come with us, and we all got to meet with a newly formed,
Fairly new, broadcasting
department at the school, and we got to meet some really great up and coming, aspiring filmmakers and broadcasters.
And Jeff Stolzfus is the teacher.
Class.
He's great.
It was great meeting him. I wish we had classes like that
back in our day.
when
of course
we
not.
were there. I wonder how that would have shaped, where I
Interesting,
am today.
right.
But I also, I can't. Which actually leads into the question I'm going to read that came from one of the students.
Hi, my name is Alicia Klingler. I'm a sophomore, and I go to Lancaster Catholic High School. Would you recommend aspiring filmmakers to go to Hollywood and/or film school?
No. No.
And
You
I
wanna
know
answer
Robert
first?
should have an opinion on it because he went to film school. So I want to definitely get his input.
I can be quick and frank. I majored in accounting, and I went my last semester at University of Pittsburgh, and I had a internship at an accounting firm, and absolutely hated it. But I wasn't about to go back and spend another 2 semesters, refiguring out what I wanted to major in. I was like, the piece of paper is the piece of paper. It's something that you need. So I left that job and ended up going in substitute teaching, which I really enjoyed. I actually did it back at Lancaster Catholic, and then moved over to be the executive assistant to the CEO of Bowman until I moved across the country. But I definitely don't think you need to go to film school. Now, I didn't go through those classes or anything like that, but I feel like, again, the skills that you bring are almost like inside of you, is what I want to say. Like, I think creativity isn't learned. It's something that comes from inside of you. And I think you're not going to learn that in a classroom.
I agree.
You might learn tips and tricks and, obviously
But
some
now
of the
you can get
technical
those
things
from
YouTube, right?
YouTube, books. I have very strong opinions on this.
Let's hear it.
Great. Okay.
Okay. One, if you are skilled at absolutely anything else besides entertainment, do it. That's my first opinion.
Well, come on.
No, I'm telling you. If I had any other skill, I would not be in this business.
Really?
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
I've thought about it for
What
many
would you
years.
do? What would you do?
Well, I don't have any other skills. I don't know. But I've thought, it's just a brutal, brutal business.
Okay.
That's
Fair.
one.
Fair.
But if you say no, that's all that I've got, or that's my dream, I will not give it up, and that's then by all means. But if there's some other thing I could do, people tend to glamorize the entertainment business,
do, yeah.
and it's really just
It's a job.
it's a job, but it attracts a certain type of individual. Not all,
Right.
but a lot of them that are just unsavory to me.
Sure.
It's just not a great.
Sure.
Okay, but let's say you're like, I'm all in.
Yep.
Do you have to go to Hollywood? I don't think so anymore.
Not anymore,
There used
right?
to be a time when you did, but I can think of so many examples. But the one that comes to mind, there was a director, and I'm blanking on his name, who had done a bunch of shorts on YouTube, horror shorts, and his wife was in all of them. Shoot, I'm not gonna remember his name, but New Line took notice. He had done one called Lights Out, where they flick the switch and he'd flick it off and it was dark, and he'd flick it on and the person was closer.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
It was a great short. And New Line gave him a deal, and I don't think he was in Hollywood, to do a feature-length version of that. So he directed that.
Okay.
That did well enough that he then got one of the Annabelle sequels, Annabelle Creation, I think.
Wow.
And that did well enough that he ended up doing Shazam.
Okay.
for Shazam, which
Yep.
is huge.
Yeah,
So he
for
goes
sure.
from doing horror shorts from wherever he is with his wife
Mm-hmm.
to directing a Warner Brothers, I think Shazam was,
big movie.
movie. And he continues to do well. So I don't think you have to come to Hollywood. Film school, absolutely not. Do not do it. Now, in my day, when you didn't have, 4K cameras in your pocket,
Sure.
and you
It's
couldn't
about resources.
edit at home,
Ah.
although I could because I had a father who was an editor, and I shot films on camcorders that you put on your shoulder.
Huge.
But it was about resources. You can check out 16 millimeter cameras. You had moviolas. You had those things. So that was helpful. But as far as what you can learn, you learn it by doing it.
Yeah.
Like make films. If you want to write, absolutely do not go. You want to write, watch movies, read scripts.
Yes.
Quentin Tarantino did not go to college. Christopher Nolan could not get into film school.
Wow. Yeah.
Like the list goes on and on and on. Some don't even get out of high school. Not that I'm recommending that, but it's an art and it's something
It's an
you
art.
feel and you can't teach it. And I think the people that, not all people, but my professors, and I went to USC, which is very
Good school. Yeah.
respected school.
For sure.
No, I would.
How
not
about
recommend-
relationships in college? Have you maintained any
Well, I got to say
relationships
this.
or built any
Let's
relationships?
go back to the networking.
Yep,
I was
yep.
terrible at it.
Okay. Okay.
A very shy introvert, did not do the networking I should. So
Okay.
for some, it's amazing. Like Brian Singer, who went to USC
Mm-hmm.
after me, not too long after, but he maintained relationships with all the people he was in school with. John Ottman, who has become a composer. I think he's directed as well. He knew from USC. I think his editor, I think John was his editor too.
Oh.
But anyways, he had relationships that when Brian Singer went on to do all the stuff he's done, Usual Suspects was I think his first film, and then ended up doing many things, including Superman and
Just amazing.
Fantastic Four or something. But yes, I think if you're going to network in college, great. Like my daughter's in film school against my wishes, but she's already like made a great kind of group of friends, and they make films that aren't particularly assigned. They just like make films
Do 'em
on
for
the
fun.
weekend. They
And
do it
that's
for
what
fun.
they need to be
That's
doing,
what's
yeah.
so important. I can tell you how many writers come to me and say, I want to write, or would be
Haven't
writers.
written anything.
Haven't
Right.
written anything.
Yeah.
Right.
They have all
gotta
these
write.
ideas, and I say to them, write something, I'll read it. I never hear from them.
And if you want to direct something, direct
direct
something.
it.
Sure.
Yeah,
You
wanna
don't have
film
to go to
something, you
school.
film
Like, why are
something.
you paying
Do it.
somebody
Just do it.
exorbitant costs? I mean, it was expensive when I went, but now
Sure.
it's, I mean, you know what you could finance? You know the kind of film you could make
For-
on a 4-year university budget?
Sure. Right. Think about that.
160,000, 180,000,
Or more,
250,000, and on and up it
Yeah,
goes.
yeah,
Just
yeah.
do it.
Just
But
do
anyway,
it.
So that's my opinion.
Great.
Just do it.
Can I be
hopefully-
frank?
Yes,
Derek?
we're very frank.
do
And that'll bring us to the end of our time for today. I want to thank everyone for being frank with us about
Yeah.
networking. It
Let
was
us
great
know.
chatting with you guys and drinking with you guys.
Yes.
A shout out to our a non-sponsorship,
Unofficial
but,
sponsor.
our whiskey.
Angel's envy for this.
It has
Singles
gotten
envy.
me through many.
Yes,
days.
through many notes and stuff
Yeah.
as writing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Things like that. But
So-
yeah, it was a great drinking with you guys. It was great talking to you guys. And
Yeah.
stay tuned. We have some more episodes coming up. Some great stuff on Halloween H2O behind the scenes, and some stuff on writing arbitration and independent filmmaking.
Yeah. We look
So,
forward to it.
Tune in next time. Thank you for listening
Can't
and
wait.
watching.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Can we be friends?